Moving on to part 2 of the anatomy of the pelvic floor, the anatomy of our lady parts. I'm going to talk about the functions of the pelvic floor. And hopefully you're starting to understand that there is no one magic pill, there's no one solution, that everything in your body works together in synchronicity, and that if one thing is off, then we're out of balance. And I want to help you get into balance so that you can take control of your pelvic floor issues, be it incontinence or pain or other. Okay, so here we go. There are 5 functions to the pelvic floor. This is what, pelvic floor physiotherapists have categorized the functions of the pelvic floor. So these muscles are a support system. Of course, they're a support system. They help work against gravity. I explain that, the muscles make sure that the organs that are above aren't going to fall out, right? And sometimes when the muscles are overwhelmed, overpowered by extra pressure, something like a prolapse will happen. And what a prolapse is organs moving down and potentially poking out of your vagina. So you see basically your vaginal wall pushed out because the other organs are pushed on. Sounds gross? Yeah, pretty much. There are 4 levels of a prolapse. It's graded in 4 levels, 1, 2, 3, and 4. 1 being, mild, 2 being starting to, 3, you better get that in check. 4, you absolutely have to have surgery. Something's sticking out. You have no choice. Now you can have different kinds of prolapses. There's really fancy names. You don't have to remember them, but there is rectocele, cystocele, endocele, uterine, and vault. All that to say is your rectum can be falling out, your bladder can be pushing down hard, your space between the vagina and the rectum can be collapsing, your uterus can be falling out, and your vagina can be falling out. Yes, not very pleasant. Chances are, if you've had a baby, if you've had a vaginal birth, or if you bear down constantly, you probably have a level 1 or 2 prolapse and you don't even know it. Supposedly they're not painful, okay? I know that I've got a level 3 prolapse. I found out in a really bizarre way. Actually, it was quite interesting. I've been struggling with really big fibroids, like alien baby size fibroids above my uterus. I was lucky because I didn't have the type of fibroids that make you bleed constantly. So I opted not to have a hysterectomy. I opted to have my fibroids shrunk. Okay, they shrunk by half, which is a success, but half of massive is still massive. And so there's a lot of pressure on the uterus, which pushes down on the bladder, which pushes into the vagina. Now, I had been complaining of pain, since basically the beginning of the size of the fibroids that I had, which was, tiny. And then it got so big that anyways, I have had gynecologists and doctors basically inside of me, checking me through the vagina, checking things out and doing tests and everything. And not once did they ever inform me that I had a prolapse. And the reason I found out I had a prolapse is that I've been teaching pelvic floor, a tune-up for a while. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to do what I suggest to my clients to do is go get checked by a pelvic floor physiotherapist. Of course, do what I say and do, right? So I decided to book an appointment, and I really did not expect anything. All I knew is I have pain. I have pain from the fibroids. I've been battling that. I understand that pain. And there was some stuff I wasn't, I had pain. So anyways, I see the pelvic floor physio, and the first assessment, she goes, did you realize you have a grade 3 rectocele and cystocele? I'm like, excuse me? No. And I said, I was just at my gynecologist 2 weeks ago complaining of really struggling with pain, really struggling with the feeling of pressure down in my vagina, in my butt, and just down my leg, and complaining that, you know what, this, even though the surgery was successful in some ways, I'm still in pain. Not once did the gynecologist ever tell me that I had a prolapse. So I was actually shocked and relieved and going, you know what, that makes sense. So if you've got pressure in your vagina, it feels like something's falling out, it feels heavy all the time. Anytime another example is when you put a this is very descriptive, you put a tampon in, if you feel it go up and whoop, deviate, you probably have a prolapse. Something is pushing, something is bulging. Things to know, okay? So there's support, information on the support. Now the second function is as a sphincter. Of course, we know that it controls the opening of the urethra, the vagina, the rectum. We want to maintain urinary continence. That's what I'm figuring. This is why you're watching this video. Okay, so to have full control over your bladder, you have to have couple of things working well. In addition, to the muscles working well, you also need your central nervous system to be functioning properly. And you have to have your lower urinary tract healthy. Okay, so you can't blame your bladder issues totally on your pelvic floor. Yes, we need to make sure that's healthy, but you might need to go and see a urologist to make sure that your urinary tract is healthy and doing okay. And you might have a disconnect central nervous system to your sphincters. Just like your heart, you can't will your heart to beat. It beats. Your sphincters also work with the central nervous system. So you might have to have that assessed. If after you've done everything that I suggest, if you've really worked hard and you seriously did do everything, you might have to take a look at that. There might be a disconnect there. So let's move on to how the reflex can be compromised, okay, as a sphincter. I'm reading this. I want to make sure that I say everything to you so you don't miss out. Okay, things can compromise your sphincter. This one's arguably obesity. Okay, if you're like extremely obese, morbidly obese, there's a lot of pressure on your pelvic floor. It's possible. But obesity and incontinence, it's not a direct link. I want you to understand. That would mean that every single person that has extra fat is incontinent. It can be a problem if you've got all the other things that aren't, doing well. It's another source of possible compromise. All right. Frequent poor core engagement technique when heavy lifting. Oh my God. Most people, and maybe this is your case, you don't know how to brace properly when you're lifting heavy things or pushing things or doing a very intense workout. Core bracing has been done poorly for those that, even those that train and have been in the fitness industry for a while, the techniques have not been the greatest. So I'm going to go over those in the exercise part, but no, simple things like if you hold your breath while creating an effort, you are messing up your pelvic floor, okay? We need to stop doing that. We need to learn to properly brace. So if you continuously bear down, of course, your pelvic floor is going to start to weaken and suffer, and voila, you pee yourself, okay? Chronic coughing and smoking, or coughing and coughing and coughing, and you'll realize that if you've been incontinent and you've been okay, but you get a cold and you can't stop coughing, that was a mouthful, you might become incontinent again. So watch out for that. Sometimes you have no choice. You just have to work at it to come back from coughing too much. Chronic straining and constipation. I'm going to talk about that during the lifestyle segment that I'm going to get into. If we strain constantly, if you're always forcing to poo, if you're always forcing while you pee, you're messing your system up. That is probably the number one thing you need to change, is stop pushing all the time, okay? And Kathy Smart, holistic nutritionist, is going to talk about being, not being constipated and how to avoid that. So look forward to that. Okay, another compromise would be trauma during birth, of course. We know that. If you go through vaginal birth and they rip you, like your baby rips you and you have to have stitches, well, yeah, your muscles are going to be compromised. And if you have scar tissue, that's a whole other thing too that we need to deal with. And I'm going to go over that in the massage section. And Katarina Getza, the osteopath that I interview, is going to mention scar tissue too. All right. Another thing that can compromise the sphincters is the go to the bathroom just in case. That just in case voiding, and that voiding, yeah, right before you leave, just in case, leave the house. That's such a bad habit. And I'm going to go into that in detail again in the lifestyle section. Overload pressure from cysts, tumors, and fibroids. There we go. I talked about it already. This one's interesting. Brain trauma, strokes, tumor, and MS. There is a link. There's a definite link. Weak, uncoordinated, or hypertonic pelvic floor muscles. There's a bunch of things. Okay, weak, uncoordinated, or hypertonic. So either weak or too tight or uncoordinated will cause issues. And we're going to definitely address those things. And also hormone changes can compromise the sphincter quality. So keep an eye on your hormones, right? Okay, so there's different types of incontinence. Maybe you're struggling with one of these and you didn't know the name to it. You just know the feeling and you know you have it. So there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them. There is stress incontinence, urge, overflow, functional, and then a mix. The ones that you probably might recognize is stress incontinence. You go, achoo, and it comes out, okay? And it can be either pee or poo or both. Ugh, I know, gross. But you're living it probably. Urge incontinence is that feeling of, my feeling was, I'm at this grocery store and all of a sudden, oh my God, I gotta pee, but really 10 minutes ago, I just went. But there's a trigger that makes you go, oh, I gotta go. Very often it's the key in the door. Somebody come home, you put the key in the door and you swear you'll never make it to the bathroom in time. You're pulling down your pants as you're running to the bathroom. Yeah, that's urge incontinence. And we're gonna talk about how to deal with that. And I pretty much guarantee that once you start implementing what I suggest, you're not going to deal with that anymore. I've had too many of my clients go, wow, what a difference between this week and last week. Amazing. Okay, so it can be that quick. Overflow is, it sounds like it, right? Your bladder's full and you just have no control over the sphincter and it comes out, okay? Then functional and mixed, we can go into that more in depth, but I think we get the picture. Now, another function, a great function of our pelvic floor, yay, is sexual. Oh, baby. We are sexual beings, and I hope you're sexual, and I hope you have that. I have to admit, you're getting a lot of, personal information through this, but I hope you relate when I talk about these things. Because I don't want to hide them, and I want for anybody else that's listening to go, you know what? Yeah, me too. And I don't need to hide it. I don't need to be shy about it. I remember Googling, is there anything out there for women like Viagra? I need help. I have like no libido. Sex is painful. It's like, blah, no interest in it. And guess what? It was my pelvic floor issues. I had to release some tension in some muscles. I had to, do a couple of things to make sure that I wasn't in pain anymore. Once I relieved that, and spark is there. So sexual, our pelvic floor is there to help us with orgasm. Absolutely. And I'm sure you've tried and friends have told you, if you Kegel while you're having sex, you're going to have better orgasms. Yeah, that works if your pelvic floor is able to contract and relax. So if it's in the right suppleness, the tone, the quality of the muscles can really make a huge difference in the quality of the orgasm, right? There's a whole part of blood flow in the pelvic floor. It also, talking about pain during sex. So it could be pain during penetration, during thrust, or even during orgasm. So if you're dealing with any of that, I think you're gonna get some relief in following this program, because I know I did. So hang in there, it'll help. And I've got this amazing interview with Tracy Wilson, my passion diva, sex coach, and you might get a lot out of listening to her and maybe even getting an appointment with her. She's awesome. Okay, the next function of the pelvic floor is as a sump pump. That sounds like something I have in my basement. Seriously, they could have called it something else. All right, sump pump. It makes sure that there is venous and lymphatic return. So it's a pump to make sure that blood moves and your lymph fluids. Okay, so if you have, I love this one. I remember going, oh my God, really? Made all the difference for me. Decreased sump pump action can create pelvic congestion. I remember talking to my gynecologist and also to some of the specialists that I was seeing, some body workers, and saying, I feel congested down there. My butt feels congested. And it feels like constipated. Not constipated where you usually feel constipated, but it feels congested. And I kept saying, does that make sense to you? And everybody was like, no, I don't get you. Well, you know what? That's exactly the feeling that I had, is I was congested down there. Now, when you're congested, when there's the lack of proper sump pump, the ability to contract and relax and make all circulation going well, you're going to have pain and pressure while standing. Well, hello. I would be cooking I do this every Sunday. I would cook and make meals for everybody in my family. And I couldn't do it very easily. After a short while of standing, I'd be in so much pain that I'd have to lie on my back, lift my legs, lift my butt, and relax there for a while. Hello, pelvic floor issue. And there's also, if your sump pump is not working well, pain with intercourse. Well, hopefully you're having a little bit of an aha moment, especially if you're somebody who struggled with pain with intercourse. There is hope. We're going to get your sump pump working well. Pump. All right, the next function, and it's actually the last function, it's stability. It is part of our core. When you go to a fitness class and people say, hey, engage your core. Well, for the longest time, core was considered a whole bunch of other muscles. I know I showed you what the 4 muscles are. Your diaphragm, your pelvic floor, your multifidus, and your transverse abdominis, that girdle. Those are your core muscles. So your pelvic floor is there to stabilize you, to help you stand and balance. You know, when you're in a yoga class and you're trying to do a balance move, if your pelvic floor is not behaving, you're going to be wobbling all over the place. If your coordination between your pelvic floor and your transverse abdominis and your multifidus and your diaphragm is out of whack, you're not going to be able to do those balance moves. So we'll get those organized. Absolutely. So the pelvic floor assists in the movement and control of the following. Your sacroiliac joint, remember that on the images, the little squiggly line, the space where your pelvis and your sacrum connect. And we usually see the outside, you can feel the outside. The inside you can't palpate, at least we can. Your pubic symphysis, right? We know that one. Your sacrococcygeal joint, the sacrum and the coccyx, right? Your lumbopelvic joint, so the lumbar spine and your pelvis, your back. You want to keep that nice and supported. And your hip joint. So I know I talked about the link between some muscles not doing well, like your obturator internus. If that's not doing well, it radiates up into the hip. So stability of those joints is important. Now, it definitely helps in supporting or unloading the spine. We want to make sure that it's doing well. And I did talk about the fact that it's part of your core. It coactivates with all the other muscles. We want to make sure that it ensures control without increasing pressure within the system. So I'm going to teach you how to brace properly without creating an overload of pressure. Now, another kind of example of what could happen when you have too much pressure in your core, when you're bracing inappropriately and probably breath holding, and creating such intense pressure, and then during an effort it's worse. I know I'm talking to you, you're a woman, chances are, but guys, if they brace inappropriately and go under pressure, they can create hernias. That's their kind of weak point. Women, I call it, we blow out our pelvic floor. Not literally, but you know what I mean. So the pelvic floor, I'm reading what I had learned from my course from pelvic floor physiotherapy PhDs who did a lecture. I want to make sure I tell you these things. So it works best when the pelvis is in neutral. So I'm going to go into proper posture with you and making sure that you're aware of what you do with your posture that might affect your pelvic floor positively and negatively. So there you go. Wow, a lot of stuff. We've got 5 functions, and so there's a lot of room for things that we can do to improve. All right? So you're getting there. Hang in there. All these ahas will make a difference big time. Have a great rest of your day.